everybody, so like a huge amount of things have changed since I last made a video. First of all, I am not directly involved with Design the Everything anymore. It's a long story, but basically I handed off the running of Design the Everything to Scott, my business partner, and while I still do all of the manufacturing for them, at this point I'm not involved with the business at all. Instead, I have focused on precision manufacturing of small components. Yeah, that's right. I became a job shop, which is not something I ever thought I would be saying. Also, I bought a new mill. This is my brand new to me, Haas OM2. I believe it's a 2021, or not 2021, a 2001 or 2003, something like that. I don't know. It's a little bit of an old machine, but it has treated me very well. Now, the Tormach is still around, and that still gets used on a daily basis. But this thing is where I make my money. Right now, 100% of my work comes from, so I can't show you any finished parts, but I think I can share some stuff with you along the way that'll help you guys learn. At very least, I can show you some mistakes that you guys can avoid in the future. The shop probably isn't too different from where you last saw it, except that the Haas is now over there, and some things have been rearranged a little bit. I've been clearing out some of the household tools, and this pile of stuff right here is getting ready to go to my garage. The bandsaw moved by the door so I can feed material from my truck into the bandsaw. And this area just used to be a disaster with all of my household tools. I have basically completely emptied at this point. I don't actually have plans for this space. But I do plan on getting all of this stuff out of here just to kind of generally declutter. Most of this is not related to what I'm doing now. Oh, and I never said, I have a new company name. The Design the Everything name went to Scott when he took that part of the company. My manufacturing company is now called Audacity Micro. Micro meaning I make small things, and that is definitely what I've been specializing in. The reason I am able to do that is, I almost fell. This machine is very good at small things. It has a 40,000 RPM spindle, so it runs small tools beautifully. It's got a 20 tool changer, and it has been more than precise enough for the kind of work that I am doing. It has a tool setter that is able to measure the diameter of the tools, and generally if I use that tool setter to measure the diameter and then run a program with the diameter compensation, I'm generally within about 5/10 of my target dimension on the first shot. I can dial things in closer if I need to, but man, hitting the right dimension on the first time has been so nice. The Tormach, while it has been a workhorse, you don't get that. You might be within a couple thou on the first shot, but not within a couple tenths. Over the last couple of months, I have been learning how to be an efficient job shop. It's not really a skill set that I had before I got started. And I realized that the number one cause of slowness, the number one thing holding me back was me. I particularly had a hard time focusing, and I always have. That's honestly, I think, one of the biggest problems I had with Design the Everything. Design the Everything required me to do like 10 different things at the same time. And basically with the way my brain worked, I was not making progress in any of them. By moving on to Audacity Micro, I am able to focus on one thing at a time. The workflow is much more linear, and I have been so much more productive. The biggest thing I have done is I no longer carry my phone with me anymore when I'm in the shop. It sounds dumb, but that phone is a huge source of distraction, especially when you're connected to it by headphones all day. So instead, what I do, and the first thing I do when I get in the shop is I throw the phone on the table there, I disconnect my Bluetooth, and I hook up my phone or my headphones to my computer. I actually have a second screen for my computer there, and that's the computer. The main one in the office is the one that actually runs my Bluetooth. So I can watch YouTube videos, I can listen to audiobooks, but have no outside distractions. And it's literally doubled my work output. And that is why I'm doing YouTube videos again, counterintuitively. I used to do a ton of Instagram stories. That was my way of communicating with you guys. But that required me to have my phone with me. By going back to YouTube videos, I'm able to just have this camera, which does not have an interconnection. There is internet connection. There is no notifications, nothing. I can just point and shoot. So let's try to make YouTube videos again. So in my new life as a job shop, first thing I do, turn on compressed air. Then while the air compressor is turning on, we can run my warm-up cycle. Yes, I know the machine is cold, that's why we're doing a warm-up. And it's just gonna spin for about 20 minutes. I have 3 jobs in progress right now. The first one is one part that's relatively large for me, coming out of this piece of plate. Then I am running carabiners for Scott on the Tormach. Then we have a job that's currently just on the saw where I'm cutting up some big pieces of stainless here. Again, this I think is actually the largest part I have made as a job shop, and they're coming out of these. So I need 24 of them. I think I've got about 10 or so at the moment. This saw is amazingly slow at cutting these, but it does work and it does leave a nice finish, so it'll take me a couple hours to chomp through this bar, but it is what it is. Moving on to the carabiners, I've had a bunch of tools break in this one specific tool path, and I don't know why. This used to be super reliable. So I'm gonna take our feed per tooth down a little bit. I'm gonna go, I think, just from 6/10 to 5/10, and I'm gonna turn our surface speed down a little bit as well. And I'm hoping that just results in some better tool life. It's set to 250 right now. We'll try 225. 250 is kind of the upper end for titanium. And I'll repost that. That'll add some cycle time. But at this point, because I have 2 machines, I don't care that much about them. The Haas has been pretty reliable for me. I haven't had any major issues with it since I bought it. Remember, it's an old machine. This is a thing that it has done to me twice, though, or 3 times now. I think the contactor that, the power on and off button controls is going bad. And occasionally, particularly if it's cold in my shop, which it is a little bit right now, the machine will turn itself off, which tends to happen during, it's either right away when I first try to turn on the machine or it's in the warm-up cycle. And again, I think it's just cold and maybe some like grease or something in the contactor has gotten sticky. But occasionally it just kind of turns itself off, which is not good. So far, it's never happened in a program, only my warm-up cycle. Once it makes it through the warm-up cycle, it's fine, but now we get to restart that. So it should turn right back on here, yeah. So I may need to get that contactor replaced. All right, the carabiners are back to running. We just broke a tool overnight, that's why it stopped. So those will be done at some point here. The Haas is finished warming up. It's happy now, and we can start getting some parts onto here. So these these bins with blue tape are how I keep myself organized now. This right here is the job that's in progress. Materials, drawings, inspection reports, anything like that lives in the bin throughout the whole job. Over here, this is the job that is on deck. This is the one that's on the saw right now. And this is the carabiners that are currently on the Tormach. Maybe I need to find a better place to put this job when it's on the Tormach, but I still, it'll be here for a while because I still have a bunch of carabiners to make. In general, new jobs go here and they just work their way down until they get pulled from the on-deck position to the active work position. I guess in the future, I will move the Tormach jobs over here. But I'm also currently working on the fidget cubes when the Tormach has some idle time, and so I've been keeping them here, and there's just not room for more stuff on this table. Well, there is, but I would like to also be able to use the workbench as a workbench. This piece of titanium here has some classic bow to it. You can see in its current orientation, there is a valley like this, which means it rocks, or we can flip it. This is how I'll machine it, where there is a peak right about here right now. That could easily blow out our flatness tolerance if we're not careful. We want to make sure that when we're holding it on the machine, we're not deforming it during op 1. Because if we, used force to spring it down, machined our part, then when we released our part, it would just spring back and our flatness tolerance would be shot. So we're going to need to find a way to mount this without distorting it at all. Actually, maybe we'll do it the other way with this side up. Most of the warp starts about here, and the other side, this side, is relatively flat, and our part is not the full length here. Our part kind of does something like this. And so if we just use this portion and cut off the rest, we should be able to get rid of a lot of the material deflection. And then from there, we can put some shims underneath it on the machine to keep things nice and flat. But first, we deburr the edges. I like to use the Scotch-Brite wheel. This was sheared, and it's got some really sharp little burrs on it. Deburring it like that not only makes it, more pleasant to handle, it'll also keep it from resting funny on the machine, which will get us flatter parts. So my scrap here, I'm gonna take, and using this paint marker, I'm gonna label it grade 2 tie. Then I'm gonna find the cert number, write the material certification down here, and it'll go in my set of drawers. Now this can go here, my drawer labeled titanium sheet, and it'll be right there for the next time I need it. This is our material cut to size. This is the side that I want up. So this is the side that we're gluing down. I have my super glue work holding kit here, which is basically a super glue activator, some alcohol wipes, and the nice tape. And I'm gonna prep this side here for glue and stuff. So first step, I'm gonna Scotch-Brite it, then I'm gonna use acetone to clean it off. Then we will apply some of this tape and smush it down really well. Then I'm going to Scotch-Brite the top of that tape, and then I will clean that off with alcohol, and it'll be ready for glue. The tape is on here and trimmed, and so now I'm going to use a Scotch-Brite pad to not only give it some surface tooth, but I'm also trying to squish out as many bubbles as I can. Now, when there is a big bubble that you just can't get out, or even a small bubble, I like to take my knife and do a couple, I'm not sure if I can do this one hand, do a couple lines through it, give it some slits, and that will help get the air bubble out. Now it is time to get the machine set up. And unfortunately, I had to remove both of the vices I have on the table. Generally, those vices stay there all the time. They never come off. But this part is too big to shove in a corner around my vices, so we had to start from scratch. Fortunately, my vices all have dowels in the bottom of them, and with the Saunders Machine Works table, they should go back pretty repeatedly. I also just kind of generally gave the machine a bath, first by vacuuming off any of the plastic chips that were hanging around, and then I used coolant to kind of spray off the inside of the machine, and then lastly paper towels to just give it a quick wipe down. We're not doing anything surgically clean here, but I don't want any loose parts, and by parts I mean chips, above my work table when I am setting this up. Because once I get stuff like the super glue down on here, one chip falling in that can destroy a whole bunch of work. So by keeping everything clean, we are avoiding the risk of potential errors. This is my super glue fixture that I use. It's got threaded holes and then a grid to kind of help distribute the glue and prevent air bubbles. And then also it has some precision dowel holes here that I can use to reference. I can use those as index marks to locate the part. This thing definitely needs to be refaced soon, but unfortunately my Haas does not have enough of a work area to do the whole pallet. So that's gonna have to be a Tormach job. One of my favorite things about this machine is how close the edge of the table is to like my hips basically. And what that means is I can work on the full size of this table. I can work on any position on this table without really having to bend over. It's a very ergonomic machine. It's very comfortable. You can work on this machine from an office chair if you feel so inclined. The downside is sometimes your belly gets wet, at least if you're like me and a little bit more rotund in that area when you are changing out parts, because this area gets coolant on here. But this door, it opens up more than just the front. It doesn't just slide, and it gives you all of this headroom here, and it's a very comfortable to work on machine. If we compare that to the Tormach, at a minimum, there's probably about an 18-inch gap between the edge of the table and the side of the enclosure, which is where your hips are. That means if you're doing anything on the table in there, you have to be bent over and it's just more difficult on your back. Speaking of which, Tormach needs screws now. So I'm making my carabiners out of blanks now. These are water cut for me by Fidget Things. And then I bolt them down with these 2 screws first. When it's done machining the slots, I put in some extra screws for more support. All right, I got my stock put in here. It is super glued down. And then I just went around and kind of reinforced it some with hot glue. And that both helps coolant from getting underneath there, especially in the places where it is valleyed or hilled, where there's gaps. You have to be a little bit careful because if your tool gets in there, it can gum up the tool, which could potentially cause issues. Also notice I left a little bit of a gap in the glue over here, and that is because I need to touch off somewhere on this material, so I'm going to touch off on this corner, and there's no glue on the back here. I did also have to move this up past my little grid lines here because of the work area of this machine. The work area ends on that dot there, so it's about here. And if I had gone down and used my reference pins like I was originally planning, the bottom of this part would have been outside of the work area. So I'm going to get it touched off and start running it. At the moment, I don't have a working spindle probe for this machine, so we're doing it old school with a wiggler. Basically, you just jog towards your part with the spindle running until the end pivots out a little bit. And it's actually shockingly repeatable. I did not realize how good of a method this was until I started doing it every day. It's definitely slower than using the spindle probe, but I had so many accuracy issues with the spindle probe in this machine that I kind of don't mind it. This works every time, and it's very obvious if something goes wrong. With the spindle probe, it's not always obvious if it misses. I guess it's a good thing I didn't put in today's McMaster order, because I just broke my second blade. I may have mentioned, but these blanks have been a little bit of a tough nut to cut. My saw just doesn't like them, I think because of the surface area going across this way. I had a hard material specific blade on there originally, and I mean, it was going slow, but it was cutting, and it cut a bunch of them, and then it broke. And then the only blade I had on hand was a aluminum specific blade, which is definitely not ideal, and that one, well, it didn't make it through many. It maybe gave me 2 or 3 before breaking. So I definitely need to buy some more blades. These ones I've been getting off of Amazon, but I think I can get some off McMaster for a pretty reasonable price. This is probably at least a day's worth of production on the Tormach, and I have a long time on these parts. So we're not at the end of the world yet, and I'm sure I could find a friend with a saw that would let me cut them if I needed to. I could even use my portaband if I was really desperate. But it's definitely annoying to be breaking these blades constantly. I don't think I've ever broken a bandsaw blade before today, actually. They must be pinching funny as they come off. I've had blades dull. I've dulled plenty of blades, but I've never broken one until today. And today I have broken 2. All right, here we go. We're cutting. I know you can't see anything that's going on. Right now, we're just taking it nice and slow, going very conservatively to cut off the top of this face here. Then we'll start on all the features that are on the inside of the part. And then we'll make a fixture to flip it, and then it'll be done. This is probably the last step that I'm going to get done on this part today. I've been kind of working on a bunch of different things, so I haven't moved this as far along as I would like. But, I mean, it can run in the background here. There's a couple hours of material removal and part making on this side. So this will probably run until I'm done in the shop today. Well, I have no idea how good this video was, honestly. I basically tried to record it like I record Instagram stories, because that's like the least obtrusive to my process. And I think it's the most efficient way for me to get out videos. So I know I could do better by getting things like B-roll and stuff, and I'll get there in the future. But I just wanted to start making some videos again to replace that content that's been missing from Instagram. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time.